welcome to a sort of continuation of the Joke Power Levels video series. You might be wondering what kind of series this is. Well, in fact, my answer is no. And by that I mean, it isn't serious that much. But we can power scale this series in and of itself later. Right now, what I want to power scale is basically cutting a donut in half. Remember, this is all a joke, so just bear with me. Basically, we can cut this entire scenario into 5 parts. Cutting, conceptualization, perspective, directive, and convergence. Now the cutting is simple. Just declare that it's not on yourself and you'll basically scale above it for the most part. The rest, however, is a bit trickier. Now the conceptualization is clearly anywhere from nigh autoversal to hyperversal plus, and perhaps even into inaccessible cardinals. But it can be hypoversal if it wants to be. A dumbed down or non-omnipotent version of this, or an example of this, is nuclear fission versus cutting a nigh infinitesimal in half. If you cut the nigh infinitesimal in half and it is infinitely stable, it won't cause any destruction. However, how invisible it becomes as a result of the convergence I talked about earlier, or could be anywhere from city level to almost boundless. As for the conceptualization, it pretty much orbits the perspective. I'm not going to go into omnipotence because that is a whole other can of worms. The directive is basically a problematic proxy on whether or not it is a problematic proxy in itself. The directive only fuels the scaling of the cutting of the donut if and only if, with an asterisk, some conditions apply, that directive is either an extension of the cutting of the donut conceptually or directly already, or believing that the cutting of the donut has the extension, if not transcendence, of the directive into it, causes such transcendence or relinquishing. It's a bit hard to scale all those 4 concepts together besides the cutting. However, it is basically, or allegedly basically, a multiplication problem with a bit of going backwards from boundless from there. Besides, we all know the truth. Ricky stole the He-Man and the Masters of the Universe episode that was the Master Control Unit to everything, and everything is just one big donut waiting to be sliced in half. You thought I was going to do a Doughnut the Eevee joke. By the way, speaking of jokes, did you know that over 9 duodecillion percent of you are not subscribed? Percent of you are not. 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 Percent of you are not.